GETTYTheresa May has stood up to the Brussels bosses. The Prime Minister's comments were a thinly veiled swipe at members of the European Parliament MEPs who voted to urge the bloc to not open the next phase of Brexit talks unless there was a major breakthrough. MEPs voted by 557 to 92 against allowing the next phase of talks, which will center on the future trade relationship between the UK and the 27-nation bloc after Brexit, to begin. The European Parliament backed an advisory motion claiming there had not been sufficient progress in the negotiation to allow the second phase of discussions to begin. Mrs. May dismissed the outcome of the European Parliament vote last night. August 31, 2017. David Davis gives a press briefing at the end of third round of negotiation on Brexit talks at the EU Commission in Brussels. I don't think that vote was a particularly unexpected one. Theresa May, she said, I don't think that vote was a particularly unexpected one. The question isn't so much around this formal declaration of sufficient progress. The question is, are people now ready to think about what the future partnership between the UK and EU will be? We have to get to that at some point. I believe it's possible to get to a good, deep and special partnership, because it's good, not just for the UK, it's good for the EU as well. What I hear is that people are starting to think about that. Tory Cabinet Minister Liam Fox warned after the vote the Brexit process was being made harder than it has to be. GETTYTheresa described the UK as being held to ransom by the EU. The International Trade Secretary said the blame for that doesn't lie on this side of the Channel, the blame for that lies on the unwillingness of the European Union to get into the second stage of negotiations. There's intense frustration that the European Union are concentrating on issues like the money and not letting us progress beyond that. Ahead of the vote, both European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and EU Chief Negotiator Michel Barnier told the plenary session of the Parliament Mrs. May's recent offer of a deal including a 2-year transition period and in £18 billion payment had been a step forward, but was not enough. Mr. Juncker told MEPs we cannot talk about the future without any real clarity. The Prime Minister's speech in Florence was conciliatory, but speeches are not negotiation positions. The former leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage, even intervened in the debate in Strasbourg to accuse the EU of attempting to hold Britain to ransom. David Davis and Michel Barnier have been holding Brexit negotiations. He told the EU bureaucrats Brexit was an act of liberation. It was a voice of national self-determination that cannot and will not be stopped. But through this negotiating process, I'm afraid from the start you've treated us as if we're some kind of hostage. Unless we pay a ransom, unless we meet all of your demands, then you won't even have an intelligent conversation with us about trade heading on from here. Manfred Weber, leader of the centre-right European People's Party grouping in the European Parliament and a close ally of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, criticized Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson during the debate. He said by reading Johnson's attacks against his own Prime Minister, he shows the British government is trapped by their own party quarrels and political contradictions.